My name is Nora Anderson and I'm 23 years old. Today marks exactly 1 year since my sister Tanya threw boiling water on my face while my father stood there laughing, saying, "That's what ugly girls deserve." The scars on my left cheek are permanent reminders of that day, but they're also my motivation for what came next. I was always the plain sister in my family's eyes. Tanya was the golden child, light-skinned, naturally curvy, with those hazel eyes everyone fawned over. Me, dark-skinned, tall, and what they called too skinny. Growing up, I heard constant comparisons. "Why can't you be more like Tanya?" from Dad. "At least one of my daughters is pretty," from Mom before she passed. The day everything changed started like any other. I was home from college, cooking breakfast for everyone. Tanya stumbled downstairs hungover, demanding I make her eggs Benedict. When I told her we didn't have the ingredients, she exploded. "You're so useless. Can't even cook right." I kept my voice calm. "Tanya, there's cereal, toast, or I can scramble some regular eggs." "I don't want regular anything." "God, no wonder Marcus broke up with you. Who'd want someone so basic?" That stung. Marcus and I had just ended things and she knew how much it hurt. But I bit my tongue, focusing on the pot of water I was boiling for pasta later. That's when Dad walked in, coffee in hand, ready for his daily dose of putting me down. "Morning, beautiful," Dad said to Tanya, not even glancing at me. "And morning to you too, I guess," he added in my direction. This was our routine. Tanya was his princess, his pride and joy who could do no wrong. I was the disappointment, the one who reminded him of my mother. And apparently that wasn't a good thing. "Daddy, look what your other daughter is trying to feed me," Tanya whined, pointing at the simple eggs I'd started scrambling. Dad looked at my cooking and shook his head. "Nora, your sister deserves better than this slop. She's got that modeling audition next week." "It's just breakfast, Dad. And she asked for something we don't have." "Don't talk back to me, girl. You know what your problem is. You're bitter. Bitter because you got your mama's plain looks and none of her sweetness." I felt my hands shake as I flipped the eggs. Mom had been beautiful inside and out. She never would have treated me the way they did. She died when I was 15, and without her protection, Dad and Tanya's true colors showed. "Maybe if you put some effort into yourself instead of always having your nose in those books, you might catch a man," Dad continued. "But who wants a girl who looks angry all the time?" Tanya laughed, that high-pitched giggle she used when she wanted to seem cute. "Daddy, you're so mean. But you're not wrong." The boiling water pot sat there, steam rising. I stared at it, remembering every cruel comment, every comparison, every time they made me feel worthless. "You know what, Nora?" Tanya stood up, moving closer to me at the stove. "I'm tired of you acting like you're better than us just because you're in college. You think those fancy books make you special." I turned to face her, spatula still in hand. "I never said I was better than anyone. I just want to be treated with basic respect." "Respect?" Dad laughed harshly. "Respect is earned, not given. What have you done to earn it? Your sister's about to be a model, making real money. You're studying what, social work? Planning to be poor forever." "I want to help people, Dad. There's nothing wrong with that." "Help people?" Tanya snorted. "You can't even help yourself. Look at you, no makeup, hair thrown back in a bun, wearing those ugly clothes. You look like a church mouse." I felt something snap inside me. Years of this. Years of being the punching bag, the scapegoat, the disappointment. "You know what? I'm done cooking. Make your own breakfast." I started to walk away, but Tanya grabbed my arm. "You're not going anywhere until you finish what you started." "I'm hungry." "Let go of me, Tanya." "Or what? You'll cry? Run to your room like you always do." Dad watched this all with amusement, like we were his personal entertainment. "Come on, Nora. Don't be so sensitive. Your sister's just playing." Playing. Like the years of emotional abuse were all just a game to them. I said let go. I tried to pull away, but Tanya's grip tightened. "Make me." That's when I made my first mistake. I pushed her hand away harder than I intended. Tanya stumbled back dramatically, like I'd shoved her across the room instead of just moving her hand. "Did you just push me? Did this ugly bitch just put her hands on me?" Dad's face darkened. "What did you just do, Nora?" I barely touched her. She wouldn't let go of my arm. But Dad was already standing, his 6-foot frame towering over me. "You don't put your hands on your sister. Ever. I don't care what she said. She was hurting me." "Good. Maybe it'll teach you some respect." Tanya rubbed her wrist like I'd broken it, putting on her best victim act. Daddy, I think she really hurt me. She's getting so aggressive lately. I stared at them both in disbelief. This was insane. I'd barely touched her, and now I was being painted as the aggressor. But this was how it always went. Tanya could do no wrong, and everything was somehow my fault. You know what your problem is? Dad stepped closer, his voice getting that dangerous edge I remembered from childhood. You think you're grown now. Think college makes you better than your family. I never said that. Your attitude says it every day. Walking around here like you're too good for us, looking down on your sister who's actually trying to make something of herself. The boiling water was still bubbling on the stove behind me. I could hear it, but I was focused on defending myself against these ridiculous accusations. I'm not looking down on anyone. I just want to be treated like family instead of like the help. Tanya gasped dramatically. See? She thinks she's too good to help family. That's it, Dad said, his voice deadly calm now. I'm done with your disrespect. You want to act grown? Let's see how grown you are. He grabbed me by the shoulders and spun me around to face the stove. Since you think you're too good to cook for your family, maybe you need a reminder of your place. I felt genuine fear for the first time. Dad had never been physical with us growing up, but something in his eyes looked different. Darker. Dad, what are you doing? Teaching you respect. That's when Tanya stepped beside the stove, and I saw something in her expression that chilled me to the bone. It wasn't anger or hurt. It was excitement. Like she was enjoying this. You know, Daddy, I think Nora needs to learn what happens when ugly girls try to get above themselves. She reached for the pot handle and time seemed to slow down. Tanya, don't. But she was already lifting it, the boiling water sloshing dangerously close to the rim. Dad's hands were still on my shoulders, holding me in place. Please, I whispered, finally understanding what was about to happen. Please don't do this. Tanya's smile was cold. You should have thought about that before you put your hands on me. I barely touched you. That's not how I remember it. Dad's grip tightened. Do it, Tanya. Show her what happens when she disrespects family. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical pain ever could. This was my father, my sister, and they were about to permanently disfigure me because I'd asked to be treated with basic human dignity. This will teach you, Tanya said, raising the pot higher. The water hit my face like liquid fire. I screamed, a sound I didn't know I could make, raw and primal and full of agony. The pain was indescribable, like my skin was melting off my bones. I collapsed to the kitchen floor, my hands instinctively going to my face before the burning sensation made me pull them away. Through my tears and the haze of pain, I heard Dad laughing. Actually laughing. That's what ugly girls deserve, he said, his voice full of satisfaction. Maybe now you'll learn your place. Tanya stood over me, still holding the empty pot. Oh my God, Daddy, look at her face. It's all red and bubbly. They were discussing my injuries like I was a science experiment. The left side of my face felt like it was on fire, and I could smell something awful. My own burned skin. We should get her to a hospital, I managed to gasp out. Should we? Dad asked Tanya like it was her decision. I mean, I guess. But she brought this on herself. If she hadn't pushed me, none of this would have happened. Even while I was writhing in agony on their kitchen floor, they were already constructing the narrative that would make this my fault. The emergency room was a blur of questions and concerned faces. I told them the truth at first. My sister threw boiling water on me during an argument. But when the police officer arrived to take a report, Dad and Tanya had their story straight. It was an accident, Tanya said with tears in her eyes. We were arguing and I was holding the pot and Nora pushed me and it just slipped. Dad nodded solemnly. My daughters were having a sisterly disagreement. Things got heated. It's tragic, but it wasn't intentional. The doctor said I was lucky. The scarring would be permanent, but it could have been much worse. The burns covered the left side of my face from my temple to my jaw, leaving my skin discolored and textured in a way that made people stare. I spent 3 days in the hospital. Dad visited once, bringing flowers and putting on a show for the nurses about what a terrible accident it had been. Tanya didn't come at all. She was too traumatized by what happened. When I got home, nothing had changed. If anything, they seemed to blame me more. Look what you made us do, Dad said when I walked through the door. Your sister's been crying for days, feeling guilty about your accident. They'd committed assault with a deadly weapon and they were calling it an accident. I hope you learn something from this, he continued. Actions have consequences. Maybe now you'll think twice before getting physical with family. I went to my room and locked the door, staring at my reflection in the mirror. Half of my face looked like melted wax. I'd never been conventionally pretty, but now I was genuinely disfigured. And somehow that gave me clarity. For years I'd been trying to earn their love, their respect, their basic human decency. I'd convinced myself that if I just tried harder, if I was more like Tanya, if I achieved more, maybe they'd treat me better. But they'd permanently scarred my face and called it justice. There was no coming back from that. No family therapy that could fix this. No amount of success or achievement that would make them see me as human. I was done trying to be their daughter. It was time to be something else entirely. I started documenting everything. Every cruel comment, every incident of abuse, every time they blamed me for their actions. I wrote it all down in a journal, complete with dates and witnesses when possible. Then I started researching. Dad worked as a senior accountant at a mid-sized firm downtown. He'd always bragged about his salary, his importance, his connections. Tanya was trying to break into modeling, working part-time at a boutique while going to auditions. They both lived in Dad's house. The house that should have been half mine according to Mom's will, but that Dad had somehow managed to keep entirely in his name through legal maneuvering I didn't understand at the time. I also started seeing a therapist, Dr. Rachel Martinez, who specialized in family trauma. She was the first person to use the words that changed everything. Nora, what you're describing isn't just family dysfunction. This is systematic abuse. The incident with the boiling water wasn't just assault. It was attempted murder. But they're family, I said, still programmed to defend them despite everything. Family doesn't permanently disfigure each other over breakfast arguments. Family doesn't laugh while you're screaming in pain on the floor. He was right. And once I accepted that truth, everything else became clear. I transferred to a college closer to home and changed my major to criminal justice with a minor in accounting. If I was going to take them down, I needed to understand the law and follow the money. What are you studying that garbage for now? Dad asked when I told him about the major change. I want to understand justice, I said simply. Tanya rolled her eyes. Justice? Girl, you watch too much TV. If only they knew what was coming. It took 6 months of careful investigation, but I found what I was looking for. Dad wasn't just a senior accountant, he was skimming money from client accounts. Small amounts, spread across multiple accounts, hidden in a web of false entries and backdated documents. He'd been stealing for years, probably since Mom died, and he needed extra money to maintain his lifestyle while supporting Tanya's expensive tastes. Designer clothes, professional photos for modeling, expensive skincare. It all added up. But Dad had gotten comfortable, maybe even sloppy. The amounts had gotten larger and he'd stopped being as careful about covering his tracks. I also discovered that the house, Mom's house, should have been in both our names. Dad had forged documents during probate, claiming Mom had verbally changed her will before dying. With Mom gone and me only 15 at the time, no one questioned it. Tanya wasn't innocent either. She was claiming unemployment benefits while working under the table at the boutique. Small-time fraud, but fraud nonetheless. The best part? I discovered Dad had been claiming me as a dependent on his taxes even after I turned 18 and started supporting myself. Tax fraud, identity theft, and more false documents. I had enough evidence to bury them both, but I wanted more than just legal justice. I wanted them to feel the same helplessness I'd felt that day in the kitchen. So I got creative. Daddy, I said one evening, putting on my most innocent voice, I've been thinking about my future and I want to ask your advice about something. He looked surprised. We rarely talked anymore, and when we did, it usually ended in arguments. I'm listening. I want to invest some money, maybe in real estate or stocks. You're so good with finances. Could you help me? Dad's face lit up with greed the moment I mentioned having money to invest. How much money are we talking about, Nora? I've saved about $15,000 from work, study, and student loans. I know it's not much, but I thought maybe you could help me grow it. It wasn't entirely a lie. I had saved that money, but I had no intention of letting him invest it. This was bait for a much larger trap. $15,000? That's actually a decent starting amount. I could definitely help you make some smart moves. Over the next few weeks, Dad started treating me better than he had in years. He was attentive, asking about school, even complimenting my appearance, which felt disgusting given my scars, but I played along. You know, Nora, I think I may have been too hard on you before. You're really maturing. Tanya noticed the change and didn't like it. Why are you being so nice to her all of a sudden? Your sister is trying to be responsible with her money. I respect that. What Dad didn't know was that every conversation about my investment was being recorded. I'd gotten good at hiding recording devices, and Dad's greed made him talkative. The thing is, he said during one of our talks, the best returns come from creative opportunities. Things that aren't exactly advertised to the general public. What do you mean? Well, let's say I know about certain client accounts that aren't being watched too closely. Money that's just sitting there not earning much. If we were to borrow from those accounts temporarily, we could make some real money. There was Dad openly admitting to embezzlement and asking me to be his accomplice. Is that legal, Daddy? He laughed. Legal, illegal. Those are just words, baby girl. What matters is not getting caught. I had everything I needed, but I waited for the perfect moment to strike. That moment came when Tanya announced she'd booked a huge modeling contract that would pay her $50,000. Finally, Dad said, opening a bottle of expensive champagne. My princess is about to be famous. We should celebrate, I said, raising my glass. To Tanya's success and to family. They were both drunk on champagne and their own arrogance when I made my move. Actually, before we toast, I have something to tell you both. Dad smiled at me indulgently. What is it, sweetheart? I pulled out my phone and played a recording. His own voice filled the room. Legal, illegal. Those are just words, baby girl. What matters is not getting caught. The color drained from his face. Nora, what is this? This is justice, Daddy. Remember justice? You said it was something I'd never understand. I played another recording, this one of him detailing exactly which accounts he was stealing from and how much he'd taken over the years. You recorded me? Your own father. The same way you and Tanya attacked your own daughter. The same way you laughed while I screamed on this kitchen floor. Tanya looked confused. What's going on? What recordings? Your precious daddy is a thief, Tanya. He's been stealing from his clients for years. And you've been committing unemployment fraud while working under the table. That's nothing. Everyone does that. Everyone doesn't assault their sister with boiling water and then lie to police about it. Dad's hands were shaking now. You can't prove anything. Those recordings won't hold up in court. I smiled, really smiled for the first time since the day they burned me. Who said anything about court, Daddy? The next morning, I sent the recordings and all my evidence to 3 different places. Dad's employer, the IRS, and the local news station that had been investigating white-collar crime in the city. Dad's boss called him at 6 a.m. Robert, we need you to come in immediately. There are some irregularities in the accounts. By noon, Dad was fired and escorted out of the building by security. By evening, federal agents were at our door with a search warrant. The local news picked up the story. Trusted accountant accused of embezzling over $200,000 from client accounts. They even included Dad's mugshot and details about the investigation. Tanya lost her boutique job when her manager saw the news and realized she was related to the criminal accountant. Her modeling contract evaporated when the agency Googled her name and found the fraud allegations. You destroyed our lives. Dad screamed at me when he got back from the police station on bail. No, Daddy. You destroyed your own life when you decided to steal money. I just brought the truth to light. We're family. You don't do this to family. Family doesn't laugh while their daughter's face melts. Family doesn't permanently disfigure each other over breakfast. You taught me what family really means. Nothing. Tanya was crying, her perfect makeup running down her cheeks. Nora, please. I'm sorry about what happened. It was an accident. No, Tanya. Accidents happen once. You've spent years making my life hell, and that day in the kitchen was just the culmination. You wanted to teach me my place. Consider this lesson learned. The house was already in foreclosure. Without Dad's income and with legal fees mounting, they couldn't afford the mortgage. The same house that should have been half mine according to Mom's original will. But I wasn't done yet. 6 months later, I sat in the courthouse watching Dad get sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for embezzlement and tax fraud. Tanya got 2 years probation and community service for her unemployment fraud, plus she had to pay back every penny she'd stolen. They'd lost everything. The house, their reputations, their friends, their financial security. They were exactly where I'd been that day on the kitchen floor. Broken, helpless, and alone. But unlike them, I hadn't let the experience destroy me. I'd used it to fuel my transformation. I graduated summa cum laude with my criminal justice degree and got accepted to law school with a full scholarship. The scars on my face had become my signature, a reminder of what I'd survived and overcome. Dr. Martinez helped me understand that revenge and justice aren't the same thing, but sometimes they can coexist. You didn't just destroy their lives out of spite, she told me during one of our sessions. You exposed actual crimes. You protected other potential victims. You held them accountable for their actions. The day Dad was sentenced, he looked at me across the courtroom with pure hatred in his eyes. This isn't over, Nora. When you get out, I interrupted, I'll be a lawyer. And I'll still remember every single thing you did to me. Tanya was waiting for me outside the courthouse, tears streaming down her face. Nora, please. I know we can't go back, but maybe we can start over? We're still sisters. I looked at her for a long moment, remembering the girl who threw boiling water at my face while our father laughed. The girl who smiled while I screamed in pain. No, Tanya. We're not sisters. Sisters protect each other. Sisters don't permanently disfigure each other for sport. I walked away and never looked back. Today, I'm a prosecutor specializing in domestic violence cases. Every time I walk into a courtroom, my scars remind everyone, including me, that justice isn't always pretty, but it's always necessary. They thought they were teaching me my place that day in the kitchen. They were right. My place is fighting for people who can't fight for themselves. My place is making sure that people like them face consequences for their actions. My place is on the side of justice, even when justice leaves scars. Especially then. So what do you think? Was Nora completely in the right, or did they throw away their family over pride? I want to hear every perspective in the comments below. And if you can't get enough of these intense family showdowns, make sure you're subscribed. I've got stories that'll make this one look tame.